On a morning from a Bogart movie, in a country where they turn back time, you go strolling through the crowd like Peter Lorre contemplating a crime. She comes out of the sun in a silk dress, running like a watercolor in the rain. Don't bother asking for explanation, she'll just tell you that she came in the year of the cat. She doesn't give you time for questions as she locks up her arm in hers, and you follow till your sense of which direction completely disappears. By the blue tiled wall near the market stalls, there's a hidden door she leads you to. These days, she says, I feel my life just like a river running through the year of the cat. While she looks at you.
All right. As we say here in Texas. Yeah, I had to do a little Year of the Cat. Little shout out to Art Bell. You are correct about that, Patty. Art Bell loved that song. He loved it. I think one of Art Bell's top three. Of course, there was Midnight in the Desert. God, what's the other one? Help me out. What's the third one he liked? Oh, that lady. I can't remember. I'm going to play it next time, though. Yes, that's Al Stewart. Did you know that Al Stewart is second cousins to Gary Stewart, the guy that brought forward Earl Van Best Jr., is, claiming it was Zodiac. They're cousins. I'm kidding. That's an early April Fool's. There's no relation. Yeah, Art Bell is awesome. What's that other song I'm thinking of? Not Midnight in the Desert that he ended with, but the other one. I mean, he played a lot of songs a lot of times, but he absolutely wore out three of them. Year of the Cat being one of them. But God, what's the other song? I cannot remember. The lady sings it. Old song. Oh, you one hit wonder lady. Cannot remember the name of that song. I'm about to play it. Just drawing a blank. But at least I remembered to turn the microphone volume on tonight. So yeah, definitely a shout out to Art. Hopefully it's not glitching tonight because it's like a broadband issue. Hey Val, how are you? Thanks for stopping by. I've been catching most of your stuff when I can, and it's always great. So everybody check out Val's channel. Very great. Forensic astrology is what Val does, and she's an expert at forensic astrology, which is a fascinating field, and she's a leader in it. So she does that on her YouTube channel with some great psychics and a lot of cold cases they do and missing people as well. So Val, you got to come on soon and school us in some of what you do. Thanks, Vita for Life. Thanks for Keeping Up. The song that the guy sang with Sinatra's daughter. No, no. What's that one? No. What's the one? I can't remember. It's on the tip of my tongue. That's gonna drive me crazy. I can't remember that song. It's a lady sings it. It's old. It's um something about a cactus, maybe. The cactus. And it wasn't Midnight in the Desert. What's the one about the cactus? What's the song with Sinatra and his daughter? This is gonna drive me crazy. No, it's not Blondie. No, the lady, you know the one. There's something about a cactus it's gonna drive me nuts. I'm not gonna be able to move forward. Good night, everybody. I can't remember that song Art Bell played like every 5 minutes. After You're the Cat, he played this song, whatever it was. I know it was Art. It had to be Art. Who's Phaedra? Well, who do they? What is that? Is that a song? No, Midnight. No, yeah, Midnight in the Oasis. Steven nails it. Midnight in the Oasis. Yes, that's it. Midnight. Thank you. Got me unstuck. Yes, I'm glad there's older people like me here that can remember Midnight at the Oasis. Oh, and that's what I was saying. Put the camel to bed. Yes, that was it. That was his song. Midnight at the Oasis. What was that? What was that singer's name? But she was really good. She does a lot. There's a live version or something of her. Yeah, that's a great song. So yeah, let's jump into all things Zodiac and Zodcast. So here's what I couldn't put up yesterday because I wanted Stefan to be able to do it himself, but I knew about this a few days ago, and it's not like this, uh, just shake you to the core thing. But for Zodiac stuff, it's really important because I think it finally can put something to bed. And Stefan said it's going to put a nail in the coffin, and I'm going to put it up, and I'm going to read what he wrote about it when he put it on his Facebook page, and then I put it on mine. I shared his Facebook post so he could get a little more audience to what he said about this find. But and remember, he said that he doesn't know if anyone's ever found this before, but I've never seen it. He has looked around and never seen it. So if somebody else has found this in the past and it was on Reddit 25 years ago, please drop a comment in the comment section and we'll fully credit that person. But I've never seen this particular find, and this has to do with the Zodiac Killer's misspelling of words. So here it is. This is also from the Exorcist letter, which Stefan's been really digging into, and we talked about that yesterday. And it says, "I don't think The Exorcist was the best satirical comedy that I have ever seen." Well, this is simple. What Zodiac did here was he, of course, misspelled satirical and comedy, but he did it with the fourth letter in each word. He literally took the I from one and the E from the other and swapped words with it. So that doesn't seem like much, but it really is because there's been so much talk over the years. Yeah, Marina Muldar, that was her. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for getting me unstuck. Uh, but anyway, this is important because there's been so much talk through the years of, well, was the Zodiac just a bad speller or blah, blah, blah? Or was he just good at math maybe and not good at English or some nonsense? Well, this is clear now. The dude could spell. He's doing this for comedic effect. And not only that, he's doing it with two words that are satirical and comedy. So you can see it there. He's just swapping the fourth letter, the E in comedy, and putting it in satirical, and then the I from satirical into the word comedy up there. This is just simple what he did. And it's for comedic effect. Well, who else would misspell words for comedic effect where they were spelled differently? But if you still tried to say it out loud, it sounds the same phonetically, like the word on the right, comedy. You have to look at it and see that it's spelled different, but it's still going to sound the same phonetically. Satirical, same thing. Who else did that? Arthur Lee Allen did. What an incredible coincidence. The Zodiac Killer does that, and so does Arthur Lee Allen. Maybe somebody knew him and they knew that he did that. And one of the things that I want to mention is the fact that Allen did do that. It was known that he did it way before debut of Zodiac, way before Lake Herman Road. People that knew him knew that he did that. Police, when they did a search warrant on his house, found a grocery list and it had things on it like eggs, AIGS. There's a letter I've seen before where Arthur Lee Allen signed it. He usually would sign sincerely Lee or something like that, Leigh. Of course, he went by Lee, but this particular letter he signed it Big Al. Sometimes he, in formal situations, he was known as Big Al. for Alan, of course, and he would spell it BEEG for big. BEG is beg, but he wanted it to sound like big, so but spell it different. So he did BEEG. So this is something that Alan did, but he did not do it all the time. But the Zodiac did it a lot more than I think Alan would have done it if Alan was the sole letter writer in the Zodiac case. I think he contributed to some of this stuff, but who I think's driving the bus, and that's Mr. Don Cheney. Of course, he would be the one doing this. This is for comedic effect. Of course, he could spell. This is just something that he thought was funny and messed everybody around on. So this is just a simple little find. It's there for what it's worth. But I've seen this kicked around for years. Well, maybe he's just a bad speller. Wrong. Because and I've said that all along. I always said, well, look at all these other words that Zodiac spells correctly, and then he'll do the other just for fun. I mean, it's obvious he's trying to do this for comedic effect, especially with these two words. So that is definitely put to bed now. The dude could spell. He's doing this for literally comedic effect. And I know people have little quirks like that, but the fact that Arthur Lee Allen was already doing that, come on. Now, I was talking about this with a friend of mine that knows the case really well. I've talked to two people today that know the case as well as I do, which is great. It's awesome to have that when you have somebody to talk to. That's why we have this in the crew, in the con room. But they were like, if Don Cheney's going to come forward with his allegations against Arthur Lee Allen in July of 1971, he's got to, if he's doing this for revenge on Allen because of some alleged molestation attempt, or it's him and Allen together wanting to mess the cops around and have them around the city with their heads cut off because it's funny, or it's just Cheney wanting to run the cops around with their heads cut off on his own, and Allen has no knowledge of any of this. He's got to know that the cops are eventually going to go interview other people that know Arthur Lee Allen and not just take Don's whole word for it all. And what do they find out when the police go investigate Arthur Lee Allen? Well, we found out this guy likes to misspell words for comedic effect. We found out that he has a Zodiac model wristwatch that has that little crazy logo on it. It's also called Zodiac. Very rare those two things come together. The name and the cross circle, say it all the time. And one of the only places it does come together in that century was that wristwatch. So he's got two huge things already going for him. So you would not expect that if this is just a revenge play on Allen, or them wanting to run the cops around the city with their heads cut off, and neither of these guys had anything to do with these crimes. But no, they go and talk to people that knew Arthur Lee Allen. They talked to a guy that knew Arthur Lee Allen well, named Phil Tucker. Phil Tucker said that Arthur Lee Allen liked the book The Most Dangerous Game, which of course you see in the 408 cipher reference. And then they find out all kinds of things that just look so much like Zodiac. Again, this is something you don't expect if these guys have nothing to do with it. They're running the cops around, or Cheney's got this crazy revenge play that he's going to enact 4 years after the incident that supposedly pissed him off. It's nonsense, because they're going to go talk to people other than Don Cheney. And going back to Phil Tucker, of course, there was that incident in Arthur Lee Allen's room that was kind of like a room off from the rest of the house. I've been by there at 32 Fresno Vallejo, where Phil Tucker was there with his wife, and Allen pulled out some things from a metal box that looked exactly like the Zodiac ciphers. And the cops talked to him. They talked to his wife. Yeah, I saw that. His wife said that, hey, Lee, can I borrow that? I'm doing a paper at school. Or for some reason, she gave him that she wanted copies of those ciphers that she saw that day in Arthur Lee Allen's room. And he said, oh, yeah, sure. But then he never got around to doing it, of course. But she asked for copies of them. So the point is, if neither of these guys have anything to do with it, you're not going to find the fact that Allen misspelled words. You're not going to find the fact that he had a Zodiac model wristwatch that he got for Christmas 1967, way before Lake Herman Road, way before debut of Zodiac Letter that happened in early August 69. It's not going to happen. So going back, I want to read this because this is what Stefan wrote, and he's in Sweden, so it's 3 a.m. But he'll find this and make a comment later. He said, after my essay on the Exorcist letter was released, I've continued to investigate the letter further and might have just stumbled across a detail to my knowledge previously has been overlooked. Remember, I mentioned that before. If anybody else has found this buried somewhere on somebody's message board, just, hey, I'll give him full credit. Just put it there. I haven't seen it and he hasn't seen it. It's well known that Zodiac often misspelled words in his communications, either purposely or by mistake. In regards to the Exorcist letter, this is no exception. Two of the misspelled words in the letter are satirical and comedy, which appears in conjunction to one another. If we take a close look at those words, you will notice that it's the fourth letter of each individual word that is misspelled. Now, Stefan also said that he thinks Zodiac was absolutely focused on the number four for and other things too, not just because this is the fourth letter, because Zodiac obviously spelled many different words that weren't the fourth letter, but he thinks that he had a keen interest in the number four for whatever reason. And I think he's still working on that, and he's got some more coming out. Another detail that can't be easily explained as a simple spelling mistake is the fact that Zodiac deliberately seems to have made a displacement and switched these letters between the two words. Okay, so that's it for that find. I think it's simple, but it's big because it's something you can finally put to rest. This is not somebody that doesn't know how to spell. He obviously knows how to spell. And then moving on again, still talking about the Exorcist letter. Somebody said, "Well, I love the I can't remember who said it, but can't get too excited about those two Zodiac letters having such a high match to Don Cheney because he didn't match very high to the Exorcist letter." And that's a good point and well taken. That's why if it's out there, I'm going to put it out. So I'm not going to defend it too hard, other than as to say that when the Exorcist letter came out in 1974, there was a lot of question as to whether or not it was authentic because there had been such a long um, dry spell in letters by that point, and it was heavily questioned. There was the Dave Tosky thing. Maybe he forged it because he caught forging letters in another case. Not the Zodiac case, by the way. He always denied that he did not ever forge a Zodiac letter. Oh, he did get caught doing it on another case, so they thought maybe he did. But it was questioned at the time. So obviously there's the Mikado reference in the Exorcist letter, but maybe if it was copied, they knew that from when the Zodiac did the Little List letter, which was June 26, 1970. So much earlier. The first Mikado reference was not the Exorcist letter, it was the Little List letter. Way back in 70. So that's a lot of time for somebody to fake it or somebody else to come in on it, or I don't know. But this is a FBI file that's talking about the Exorcist letter. And I know there's an FBI file that says that they felt that it was genuine Zodiac when they compared it to the other ones. I think a handwriting expert, I don't know if it was Cheryl Morell that did a lot of them back in the day, who was supposedly supposed to be the best in California at the time, but I guess years later, they're not sure. But this is them talking about the envelope. It says photocopy of envelope postmark U.S. Postal Service, February 3rd, 1974, bearing the hand-printed address, editor, San Francisco Chronicle, San Francisco, California. That's what the Zodiac put on the front. And then it says accompanying photocopy sheet of paper bearing the hand-printed message beginning, "Dear Mr. Editor, did you know that the blah, blah, blah." And it said the question hand printing on the envelope and letter is what those symbols mean, contains some characteristics which are not entirely consistent with the handprinting characteristics contained in the Zodiac letters submitted to the laboratory to date. For this reason, it could not be determined whether the letter and the envelope were prepared by the writer of the Zodiac letters. However, no characteristics were found which would definitely establish that the letter and the envelope were prepared by someone other than the writer of the Zodiac letters. The submitted evidence is retained. So I don't know. I'm just putting that out there. There was some distance in between it, but I can't remember who, but somebody suggested that I have Stefan run the debut of Zodiac letter, the one that says the good times I had in Vallejo. This is the Zodiac speaking, which the first time Zodiac used, identified himself as the Zodiac was August 4th, 1969, the debut of Zodiac. So I asked him if he could do that. He didn't say if he would or not yet. We'll see. I'll hopefully know tomorrow, and I'll put that up. So it'll be interesting because that'd be another great letter to compare the Cheney letter to his debut of Zodiac. So we'll see where that comes out. But I know that particular letter, when you see scans of it, looks like a lot of the words got smeared somehow. I don't know if it got wet or something. So maybe that might be problematic, but I don't know. Yes, absolutely. And the thing about that letter is Cheney misspells victim. And I can tell you this, Don Cheney knew how to spell too. He made the honor roll every year in high school, went to of course, Bakersfield Junior College for 2 years, and then went to Cal Poly Pomona. Cal Poly is pretty no slouch as far as colleges go. I mean, guy's got a lot of education. You're not going to be making honor roll if you don't know how to spell a simple word like victim. But how did Cheney spell misspelled it a different way than Zodiac? He put Vic Tom. Well, who was he writing the letter to? Tom. So this is it's just the same thing. He's play on words, and he was amused by it. So absolutely is what he did. I've heard that before. I heard that they use that. If you're talking about the zodiac symbol, I think you were correct. Somebody pointed that out. Speaking of things UK, the zodiac was absolutely in English literature, not just the Mikado, but you could just the words of phrases he uses. You could tell he's very into English literature. Obviously, Agatha Christie is in there. I'm sure he read that little book called The ABC Murders by Agatha Christie and many other things going way back. So you have to make a safe assumption that he was influenced by Jack the Ripper. So Don goes with Panzarella, and he's got to come up with something fast. Absolutely, the Panzarella is crazy. Never understood it. Okay, I'm going back to Val because she's about astrology. Chinese astrology, especially people who follow feng shui, do not buy real estate with an address of. Oh, that's interesting. I never thought of that. They won't. They do not buy real estate with the address of 4. The word 4 in Chinese is the same as death. That's interesting, Val. I'm glad you said that. 4 is death in Chinese. Of course, the Mikado is English, but it's basically, of course, set in Japan. But there's some things in the Mikado, like the Buddha, which is Chinese and Japanese, and a lot of symbols like that. And I can tell you there was a certain person that had a Buddha in their house. Wasn't me. But that's interesting that it's that number 4 in Chinese is the same as death. So that's interesting that part of feng shui they want to avoid that. So I bet they wouldn't. As much as they wanted the house, they wouldn't buy it if they had the 4 because it's bad luck. I'm gonna look into that. That's a good point. See, that's why we do this stuff or comps like that because get somewhere. Never heard the story of ALA having ciphers in his bedroom. Yes, that's well documented. It was Phil Tucker with his wife. I think I think there was a couple of ciphers that had already been printed in the papers before this happened. So Alan could have learned from him from the newspaper, but who knows? But he did have them. They were in a little gray. I think there was a gray metal box in his room. Phil Tucker and his wife saw it. I believe Ron Allen may have been there as well. And Phil Tucker's wife told the police the same thing her husband did. She said, we saw them. We saw symbols on them. They looked exactly like the Zodiac Killer letters. And people that remember this, Alan said that he got them from another inmate at a Atascadero hospital. And it had, the guy was having some kind of trouble with his lawyer or something. But Alan said that the ciphers that he had in that box that looked just like Zodiac's came from some other patient or somebody at Atascadero. That was his story of where they came from. He never claimed he made them, but he got them from some guy at Atascadero. So yeah, that's a well documented true story. It's in the police files. It's absolutely in the police files where Alan found the letters, which brings me to this. A copy of, I'm gonna put this back up. I gotta put this up because I got this cool, green screen of this awesome looking picture of San Francisco at night. I don't know where I found that, but it looks, see, like my big head is like screwing it up, but that's downtown San Francisco. It's pretty cool. So there was a copy of Arthur Lee Allen's will that he typed because he had a typewriter they found. And I think at one point they thought it could have been the same model as one of the Zodiac letters. But when he types letters, he doesn't do the spelling thing at all. I think this was just when he would write letters, when he would do the misspelling words for comedic effect. But in his will, everything is like really is pretty well written. Remember, he taught English and he taught elementary school, so that was more his wheelhouse than math. It was known that Arthur Lee Allen was not geared for mathematics, not in the way that Zodiac displayed it. This guy's not making a 340 cipher that took 51 years to break. Not happening. He's not a mathematical guy. You know where that comes from? It comes from the mechanical engineer. But it's interesting to read how he reads this. So it says, being in sound mind, if not in body. See, he's kind of funny that way, but he says he wrote this his will in June 30th, 1991. Of course, Allen passed away in August of 92. And he says, being in sound mind, if not body, I hereby put to paper my last will and testament. I will update this document as conditions warrant, so the computer version will always be the last and most current will and testament for Arthur Lee Allen. First and foremost, I wish to have it known that if, due to whatever circumstances, I enter a vegetative state, i.e., brain dead, with little or no chance of recovery, that all life support systems be disconnected, and whatever of my body organs that may be useful to help others be utilized for that purpose upon my death. So, Allen was an organ donor, the big bad killer, the big bad Zodiac. Arthur Lee Allen wants to leave his organs. He says, I have 2 boats. The papers for both are in my file cabinet, and both boats reside in Harold Huffman's backyard in Vallejo. In gratitude for his friendship through the years, I bequeath both boats to Harold, and then some other items. It was redacted, something court, Foster City, California. The papers for the monohull are signed and ready to transfer. The Hobie Cat, which I have registered as unknown to save on use taxes, is current. I would just register it each year and not go through the transfer hassle. If a clear title is preferred, a lien can be placed upon it for storage fees. Make it an amount over the value of the boat, and legal ownership can be attained that way. Also, I bestow upon Harold Huffman of Foster City power of attorney for the above mentioned boats, and empower him to sign any transfer documents in my stead. That's kind of an interesting phrase to still be using in my stead. I do not know what legal requirements there may be to grant power of attorney status, but I do believe I have made my desires clear, which is the purpose of this will. As regards to my motor vehicles, it is my desire that Glenn Reinhardt is redacted, but we know it's Glenn Reinhardt, it was his best friend, of Martinez, be given the Carmen Ghia convertible. That was considered Allen's prized possession, was that Carmen Ghia convertible. I don't know what it was worth at the time, but actually had 2 at one point. I think Arthur Allen had 2 Carmen Ghias, which of course was the kind of car Brian Hartnell was driving at Lake Berryessa when he was attacked and Zodiac Killer wrote on his car door. Says the Buick will go to the Buick will go back to Ronald Allen of Santa Rosa, of course, his younger brother, in a damn sight better condition than when it was when I bought it from him. So those, there's proof that Ron and his brother Lee they were not really on that great of terms at all. So that explains a lot. And you see that with comments like that. Those guys really didn't have a whole lot to do with each other. So, be it as it may, I sometimes see people speculate if Ron Allen could have been involved in this stuff, and the answer is hell no, not even close. But what's odd is Ron Allen started being friends with Don Cheney first. Of course, Ron Allen was Don Cheney's best man when Don Cheney got married. So, I'm sure, if Don Cheney's hanging around with Arthur Lee Allen, Ron's not going to be around a whole lot because he just didn't get along with his brother. And then it says camping equipment, I go to Mr. Land's, cookbooks, blah, 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 archery equipment. He had all this kind of stuff. Avastar aviation computer. So, he knew Arthur Allen did know a lot about flight as well. So, point is that it's not Allen doing this sadistical letters and taunting and all that. It's just, he was just a blowhard for the most part. He was in the dark about most of this. You know who the mastermind is, the guy that knew the mathematics, the guy that took just enough out of what Arthur Lee Allen did and spread it around these letters to create this persona. Going back to what my friend said, you would not expect to have somebody come forward and say, my friend told me he's going to do all this stuff, and then they're going to go and find nothing. They're going to go, if that's what you would expect, if he's just screwing the cops around, or it's just Cheney on a revenge play, you're not going to expect the misspelled words that he was already doing. You're not going to misspell Tucker seeing the ciphers, Tucker saying most dangerous game. You're not going to get any of this stuff that matches up so well with Allen. And then you have all the things that don't. That's it. So that's it for now. I'll let you know if I hear back anymore. So Stefan, thanks for letting me present your stuff. Let me do this one from Val real quick. He learned the code from military. I think one clue might be to go through what was being taught to him while he was in the service. If you're talking about Don Cheney, oh, you know I've done that. One thing that Don Cheney had when he was in the Air Force, he was training to be a navigator at Harlingen Air Force Base in Harlingen, Texas. And one thing that he took there was celestial navigation. They called it night cell. And the Zodiac absolutely had a fascination with the stars and the constellations. And this is seen, you see the compass rose over Mount Diablo. Cheney could also navigate sailboats, like racing sailboats, big racing sailboats. He would do sailboat racing. He could navigate them, and that's one of the things I think that he definitely took from military training was celestial navigation. And the first person ever suggested that the Zodiac may have had celestial navigation training was Michael Cole of Zodiac Revisited, the 3-book series. And Cole had a blog before his books came out, and he's highly speculating this guy who's been researching for how long? I mean, a long time, Michael Cole. He believes had celestial navigation training. I'm like, I know it's the guy that did. His name's Don Cheney. He had a Harlingen without a doubt, and he could draft and had everything else going for him. So, I got asked that earlier today. Uh, Definitely don't do this for a living. I'm in the commercial real estate business, which I've been in for a long, long time. I lease and manage industrial real estate right now. Lots of dock high buildings, 18 wheelers, and some smaller stuff. It's called service center space, which gets really a little more interesting during the day with some tenant disputes. I can tell you what hobbies he had is what he says to he when he read the newspaper, he read the comics first. That's something he liked. When he was asked in an interview with who, he said, "Do you remember Arthur Lee Allen ever liking things like the Mikado or opera?" He said, "No, he liked things like Mad Magazine. I like things like the Mikado and opera at the time." So he said right there, his main hobby was hunting, big game hunting, not safari, but big game. Mostly hunting in Idaho, Washington State, Tri City area, all around there, and those mountains, California too. But mainly, I think Washington State, Idaho. Mainly, his favorite place in the world was Poets Creek, not Creek. It's pronounced Crick. Uh, Up in the Nez Perce. So hunting the Nez Perce, big for him. He claims that he quit hunting was something he had done only when he was younger. That's not true. He hunted as long as he could hunt. And I know somebody that knew him well and said all he could ever talk about was hunting animals all the time. He was an avid hunter. He would spend literally he could spend as long as he could out in the woods and survive. He was literally a mountain man, literally. So that was his hobby. He was a mountain man. He made leather sheaths for knives. He was highly skilled at sewing and sewing leather sheaths, like for foot long knives. He made his own knives out of carbon steel. Was his preference for knives with he'd gut animals with. That was his absolute favorite thing to do. I don't know. He could be because there's not that many. There's not that many of them out there. So I haven't found it, but back down the line, probably. I'm going to dig into that a little more because it would be just kind of a neat thing to do. That they could be absolutely. Thanks, Phil. Yes, leather work. Yes, highly skilled at leather work, sewing leather, embossing leather, making it look nice. You know, uh, we should do that. Maybe somebody can get a spirit box. Maybe someone, have you seen those spirit boxes? Those spirit box things on YouTube. So he died in 2009. He had cancer. I don't know what kind of cancer he had. He was living in Benton City, Washington. He wasn't feeling well. I don't know. He literally fell off his porch. And it was cold night. I think it was November 2009. So it was already really cold, and Benton City, Washington is pretty cold. And he died probably, I guess, hypothermia, and they didn't find him till the next day. Heck yeah, I would. I'd love to interview him, and I'd love to interview Ted Braden. I mean, I would, at least I know what Don looked like and sounded like. I mean, I know what Braden looked like, but I don't know what he sounded like. I'd pay, I'd pay King's ransom for audio of Ted Braden even talking. Video of Ted Braden talking. Well, watch out. I'm gonna, I'm gonna get that if it exists. I want it bad. I really want to know what Ted Braden sounded like. He was in the Air Force in 1956 and 7, maybe the early part of 58. And then I think he briefly comes back to Bakersfield, and then he goes to Cal Poly Pomona and late 60s. There's 61, 62, 63 graduates, I think in 64, and then moves to gets married, and then he moves to downtown San Francisco on Day Street. But yeah, those are the military years. There's 56, 7, May, part of 8. Yes, dead. He died 2009. Alan died in 1992. You know what? This is a great question, and somebody I knew was digging into that. Maybe Tony Donnelly, if Tony is on. Where are you, Tony? I think Tony did some work into that. If they like what hunting seasons for what animal uh coincided with anything. Uh, you know what? I'm going to follow up on that, but that's a great question. Yeah, maybe Solaris knows somebody who could contact Cheney in the great beyond. Yeah, I know this. He wasn't he definitely wasn't a Christian because I know he wanted to spend eternity in Poets Creek. So he didn't want to, he was, so I know Zodiac talked about afterlife and all that, but we don't know if we really meant he was going to have slaves in his afterlife, but I think he wanted to spend eternity in Poets Creek. Zodiac taught me of 37 is another Zodiac taught of me 37 is another clue. Yeah, I don't think he killed 37 people, even though Sean Balls definitely got me thinking about Ray Davis again. Of course, Ray Davis was the cab driver who was killed in Oceanside, California, in 1962. A local lady picked up. It was actually a local lady that I think she's a writer, and she's the one that gave some more publicity to the Ray Davis murder. And I think she's the first one that thought, could this be Zodiac? And it made a lot of news. And she's actually interviewed in the Vanish podcast right now on Zodiac. And I'm glad I'm mentioning that. I'll drop the link for it. Don't miss Vanished. I think part 2 is coming out any day now. Part 1 is already out. Part 2 is coming out, and one of our regulars is going to be there in that next segment, who's Ross with Planet X Film. So don't miss that. It's going to be great. Yes, Poets. How fitting. Yeah. For somebody that like literature. Poets Creek. Crick. I keep screwing that up because it's Creek here. It's Crick up there. Did the military piss off Cheney? I don't know. His DDR is clean. It's just, it looks like his separation document is fine. I really need his military records. The DDR is good. But we don't know because there's the one Zodiac letter that says DAMXO, and XO is a commanding officer. So it's like maybe he was mad at the commanding officer, but I don't know. I know it's odd that what he was doing is trying to be a navigator, which was 2 years in the Air Force. The pass on rate from the navigation training he was getting is like 96%. It's something extremely high to continue on in the Air Force because you're getting this specialized training. You're getting flight time, which is really expensive. You're trained in electronics, like I said, celestial navigation. So it's very odd to just get that training and just get out. But he did. He did it for 2 years. He left on good terms with the military. He was an honorable discharge, but it's an uncommon thing to get that and not stay with it. No, he couldn't hold a job. That was, which is odd for somebody that intelligent. You know why? This is what I think. And I was talking with my friend today. He just didn't like authority. He didn't like authority figures. Even when he worked for Panzarella, who was making millions of dollars, had a cush job working for a good friend. All he had to do was hire and fire. And he didn't even stick with that. Maybe, who knows? I don't remember. I believe Ray Davis' body was dumped on an alleyway and partially on mayor's property of city. I never heard that, loco. Sean, if you're watching or if you watch it later, look into that. And Ross, let me know if that's true. I didn't know that. And then and then there was the book. I know Sean just sent it to me again because I couldn't remember the name of that book that they found in the cab. Um, and he drove the cab somewhere. The killer of Ray Davis took the cab somewhere. But I remember, I could remember, had a long conversation with my buddy about Ray Davis today. Um, and he was just going over all the, there was another cab driver that happened with Larry Hargis. That was in 1970. He looked a lot like Paul Stein. Um, Yeah, my friend said Ray and his brother moved to Oceanside and his wife stayed in Pomona. They were briefly living in Pomona, and you know who was living in Pomona at the same time that Ray Davis was living there with his wife. Don was still living in Pomona at the time, so pretty close too. But from what I understand, Ray Davis and his wife were not in Pomona very long. They had just moved from Michigan, and then they settled in Pomona, in California. And I think Ray's there for like 6 months, and then he goes to Oceanside and drives a cab and he gets killed. Yeah, please do. Please do. Yeah. I mean, my friend right now, he's like heavy into Ray Davis. I mean, he's just like, and he's got me thinking Ray Davis again. Like, you know what? I mean, that is an early Zodiac. When it definitely shows somebody that would spend a lot of time in Northern and Southern California. Chris said, yeah, it's true. The body was dumped there, I guess, at the mayor's house. That's crazy. Yes. Does the zodiac crosshair symbol also relate? I don't know. I think the symbol was not really meant to be, a compass rose, but the zodiac made it a compass rose when he put it over Mount Diablo and did, he put the north on it, magnetic north and everything. So he made it a compass. And then Don Cheney refers to it in an interview as a compass. When he's talking about Arthur Allen's watch, he calls it a compass. When he's talking about the Zodiac logo, I thought that was kind of revealing. I don't know. I could tell you who doesn't seem violent as Arthur Lee Allen, but they try to make him into this. Uh, he doesn't seem violent either, but uh, think of the crimes. It's with a gun. It's a knife. It's not really sadistic at all. That's why Sherry Joe Bates never really felt like Zodiac to me because she was attacked with such, just absolute rage. I mean, I know Cecilia Shepard got stabbed quite a few times, but it was more like do it and leave. That's probably how Brian Hartnell survives because he played dead. I don't know. It's a good question. The drive and motive would just, I mean, it dies with the person. We'll never know. We'll never know. I don't know what it would have been. I think just just narcissistic personality. You know, I really do. I just think it was a heavy narcissistic personality, and I think the motive wasn't violence or the murders themselves. I think that the correspondence, the creation of the uh, Zodiac persona was far more important, and beating the police and getting away with it was um, far more important. I don't know what you know what I don't know. I don't know about the military psychological testing. That's a good point. I don't know what's I've never done it. I don't know what's involved in that. I could say he did. I can't remember. There was four different places where I had the testing scores, and three out of the four were almost perfect, and one was like administrative or something, but nothing about psychological testing. I don't know what's involved in that, but it's worth looking into. But there's been plenty of psychotic people through the years that have been in the military. I mean, it was a guy. That was a Whitman, the guy that shot up the tower at the University of Texas. That guy was an ex-Marine. Um, Lee Harvey Oswald was in the military. I mean, I'm sure the list goes on. Plenty of dudes have been in the military that lost it. I don't know, but that's a good question. I think it was just he was just a really sick narcissist. That's a good question. Any romance? I don't know. I know he fought with his wife quite a bit. He called it friction. He used the word friction to describe fighting with his wife. He said we had a lot of friction. Uh, This I don't know, but they took a while to officially get divorced, but they were estranged for a long, long time, lived on separate coasts. But officially got divorced in 86, I think, in Connecticut. It was a Connecticut divorce decree. I think he only lived there very briefly. He mainly lived on the West Coast in Benton City, Washington. Steven says the alley directly behind the Oceanside mayor's house. Okay, that's where they left it. Chris, Don was a failure, and this was his anger perverted. I think so. I think he had a lot of anger. You can look at it. He's got that snarky, go back to his name was Arthur Lee Allen. He's telling this BS story about Allen taking him over to he takes him through Blue Arc Springs and they go up back into Lake Herman Road, and Alan's telling him what he wants to do to some girl there, and he says, and it wasn't pretty. I mean, why does he add that? And it's not pretty. What I mean, just think of that. Does he really need to put that there? We know what happened at Lake Herman Road, dude. Everybody watching knows what happened at Lake Herman Road. Two young teenagers got shot and killed at Lake Herman Road. Why do you have to say it? It's not pretty. I mean, what is he going to do? Light them on fire and do a voodoo dance? Does he really need to add? And it's not pretty. I mean, that's nothing small on my account. I mean, that's just go back and watch that when he says it. It's just snarky, blah 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 blah. I don't know. Somebody's asked me that before about the Albany. Um, no, I don't think so. I not that I know of. I don't. Yeah, somebody else has asked me that before. I don't think so. She lived in East Lyme, Connecticut. East Lyme, Connecticut, for the most part. How do I feel about the hoax theory Thomas Henry Horn has proposed? Some of the stuff in police reports make a lot of sense when considering the theory. Yeah, I know one that he talks about a lot is the patterned pants and the patterned slacks, and a lot of that stuff could have come from that. There's a lot of good points to it. Tom's a good friend, and I've always said what the most interesting things are for that theory. I mean, that's definitely if I didn't have Don, I would probably be a subscriber to that. I mean, in my natural stuff and conspiracy type mind, I do like a lot of things about it. Uh, the fact that Dennis Land removed the crime scene or the blanket as it is from Lake Berryessa is very, very unusual to me. He was former military police. You think he would have known better, but he removes that. Uh, and I know that Tom says that possibly Dennis Land is the killer or the of Cecilia Shepard. So there's some definite things there that could be going on. I mean, he's like I am. We love connections. He told me he was blown away by the fact that Don Cheney and Paul Avery went to the same little junior college. He doesn't dismiss that. He goes, "That's a stunning, remarkable, small world." That's not a synchronicity. That's stunning that those two guys were in that close of quarters back then. So, there could be a way to tie it in. Like I've always said, I don't know for sure that Lake Herman Road or Blue Rock Springs absolutely has to be Zodiac. It's possible one of them's not. It just isn't. So there's some things about it I like. I really do. Yeah, Evans from Texas is a sharp guy. He has really good videos on that. He really did a good job of supporting the Zodiac hoax theory. He's a really nice guy too. Very nice guy. He keeps a real low profile because he had some psychos calling him or something. He told me so. Totally respect that. I mean, it's just the loons. There's some loons out there. So he lays pretty low, but he's a super smart guy and he's a very nice guy. I haven't seen him in a while. Evan, if you're still out there, man, shoot me an email because he might be watching this and just keeping a low profile. But if you're out there, man, shoot me an email. Just let me know you're doing all right because he's a super smart, super cool guy. DC interview was so revealing. Again, another taunt thinking he's untouchable. Yeah, the whole thing's like a confession. You know, he found it in this little book called the ABC Murders because he wants to tell you how he came up with it all under the guise of Arthur. Yeah, murdering people is pretty snarky indeed. Dennis Land committed. I can't remember that. Really? I don't know. I don't know anything about that. I think it could be. I think the 78 letter could be real Zodiac. I know Richard Grinnell thinks it is. I think Richard thinks the bulk of the post Exorcist letter Zodiac correspondence is legit because he's done a lot of good deep dives into that. Uh, he's the all around letter guy, is Richard Grinnell at zodiacciphers.com. So I lean toward the fact that it is. I really do. The celebrity cipher, the LA Times letter, I think is legit. Like, remember Zodiac said I started writing to the LA Times because they buried me on the back pages. Well, guess who was living near LA at the time that letter came out? Yeah, that's a good point. I had to read Sherlock Holmes stories as a child. I didn't really much at all. I like them later, but not when I was a kid. I didn't read a whole lot. Thank God for TV. Year one. Oh, the one I did on Sandy. Okay, yeah. I think you meant year one. Yeah, year one. Mine. Yeah, yeah. Panzerol's an interesting guy. I'll look up astrological map of the sky in 1956, and shockingly, the shape is the crosshair. Man, you're killing it tonight, Bell. Oh, no pun intended. Yes, please do. Patty loves Sherlock Holmes. Yeah, Sherlock Holmes is good, and I would, that's something Zodiac probably absolutely was influenced by too. Had to be because he loved Mikado. That Jack the Ripper had to interest him. He's the way he uses his phrasings is he's definitely like English literature for sure. I don't think he was from England, but he definitely liked English literature. There's something that he saw when he was young and it left an impression on him, and he liked things connected to England. Still think ALA was a drive along with Cheney with the first murder, trapping him into silence. Hey, that's possible, Chris. I think you said that before, or you told me that. I agreed. That could be possible. He could have had something on him to where, hey, you're going to take this accusal. Don't worry, you're not going to go to jail. And I got a great exchange with somebody about uh, the fact that, and he wound up agreeing with me 100%. But he was like, "Why would Cheney come forward about Allen in '71, knowing that that would put him at risk if he's the Zodiac?" And we had a long exchange, and it was great because I was like, "Here's why, here's why, here's why," and it was just foolproof. First of all, that was risky. Yes, very risky. Well, shoot, what did the Zodiac do? What did he do at the Presidio? What did he do at Lake Berryessa? Daylight attack. That was risky. Lake Herman Road was risky. As my other friend was telling me today, I think somebody passed him on the way up there. I think of one of the police, and he barely missed getting caught even at Lake Herman Road. There are cars that go up and down that, even at that time of night. It wasn't that late. And he took lots of chances. The Zodiac took a lot of risk and managed not to get caught. Lots of luck. But there's a simple answer. Why would he do that? No one exposes him. Why did the Zodiac do it and get exposed? No, I have not read. I've not read those books. I heard they're pretty good. Of course, I'm not a big Doer fan. I think it's Don Cheney. I know Doer's got his followers though as a suspect. I mean, some of the stuff about him is kind of intriguing. I mean, he's a Vallejo guy. Um, the zines and the different stuff with him looks pretty good. I mean, I heard they're pretty good reads though, but I don't think he's Zodiac. No, I mean, obviously I have a guy, but with the guys that come out like that, I remember like the guy was like red hot on a lot of the forums and message boards, and there's always like 3 or 4 big time cheerleaders. It's him, it's him, it's him. And then when nothing new comes out, like everybody's like, are they going to test him against the prince? No one's going to get tested against any prince. Nobody. Okay. They're not going to go, oh, we found him. He found him. When you go, aren't they going to go in SFPD going to go look at door in 5 minutes? No. I mean, and of course, none of that ever happens. They only have partials. They're like, they don't even know there's Zodiacs. They don't even connect 2 of the crimes together. So, with suspects like that, they're real hot for a while, like Ross Sullivan or Larry Kane, and they don't hang on. The bad marriage, everybody goes back to is Cheney and Allen, and it will. In this case, you're always going to run back to Cheney and Allen. There's some good circumstantial stuff for Doer. I think he's a lot better than some, but the circumstantial evidence between Cheney and Allen is mind-numbing. I mean, starting with the misspell words for comedic effect, which we have just proven is what he was doing. Uh, the Zodiac watch. You got Cheney going to the tiny junior college with Paul Avery. You got Cheney having a close relative with the last name Paradise in the weird spelling. You got Avid Hunter. You got a guy that's stocky, barrel chested. Avid Hunter. You got, I mean, it just goes on and on between the two. You got Cheney's a mechanical engineer. He could draft like the Zodiac could draft, and the light table graph paper. Um, there's just too much going on here. You got Cheney who inserted himself into this case. He's been around in this case since July 71. He forever altered this case when he brings forward Arthur Lee Allen. You don't have the modern case we have today without Don Cheney, no matter how you look at it. Regardless of if he was involved or not, or lying, it doesn't matter. He forever altered this case when he brought forward Arthur Lee Allen. And like we said, because when the cops came looking after Allen, they found a lot of stuff that blew their minds. They were like, whoa. A lot of those police went to their graves believing that Arthur Lee Allen was the Zodiac killer. No doubt. ALA probably wasn't worried because he wasn't the killer and Don was the puppet master. That's exactly it. And I think he had him. I think all it would have taken is one of the weapons to be found. And who knows, Cheney could have tricked Allen and said, hey, check out this new gun. And Allen's playing with it, and Cheney grabs it back with a shirt or something, not touching it himself, and he buries it somewhere, I don't know, near 32 Fresno Street. And if the cops come running and find that gun with Allen's prints on it, he's going down quickly. That's all it would have taken. Simple. Cheney's a planner. He's smart. Yes, I have asked about the unused footage for that documentary, and they have not responded. The company's in Arizona. First, they made same people that made the Fincher film, that made that made that documentary. Same people tied with the ones that made the movie Zodiac. Can't remember the name of it. They're based out of Arizona. So yeah, I've asked for it and still no. I don't think so, Val. I don't think there was a woman who came out and talked about him. Not that I know of. I don't think so. I know a woman that talked about him, but it was all just between us. Yes, cogitate, paradise, etc. Those are all they're used in English, but definitely you're going to see that more in English literature. God, there's a lot. There's a lot with that particular interview. Um, the first one is the fact that he's still struggling with his timeline. Tom is actually, I had to admit it. I hate to ever give that guy credit for anything, as much as he likes giving me any, but I have to give him like a little bit because he did kind of press Cheney on his timeline, and Cheney he just breaks up. He can't do it. He's like, did this day that Arthur Lee Allen told you wanted to become the Zodiac Killer, was it New Year's Day 68 or 69? And Cheney's doubling down on 69 like he does in the video. So that's the most interesting thing is he's struggling with that timeline, because that's the biggest mistake Cheney makes, is moving his timeline up a year. And that's his Achilles heel, is moving that date. He had no reason to move that date, but he had to when they found out that Allen had not been fired from Valley Springs until March of 1968. Big problem. You're not going to go cheering him up for losing that job on New Year's Day 68, Don, because he hadn't been fired yet. And somebody, I don't know if it was law enforcement or who, we still don't know, but it was years and years later, bothered to go check up on that. And they were like, wait a minute, this guy's story can't be true because Allen hadn't been fired yet. That's why Cheney had to move that timeline. And then it becomes problematic, because you said you went over there to go look at Allen's wristwatch that he got for Christmas that year. Well, you're talking about Christmas of 68, right before New Year's Day 69. And problem, he got that watch for Christmas 67. So he's had that watch a long time to be asking you about this gift from his mom, because he's had that watch for well over a year. So yeah, that among a lot of things. I don't know. I need to go through that again because there's so many. He calls the Zodiac symbol, he refers to it as a compass. he there's a lot of stuff in there. Just pinning him down on the timeline is the main thing. That the fact that he can't answer for it, it just shows you. These are great questions. Yes, he did. When Allen was finally told the accusations against him were from Don Cheney, he said, "Oh, Don's a nice guy." That's true. He just said, "Oh, he's a nice guy." He didn't eviscerate him like, "Oh, he's full of crap. He's a liar." Blah blah blah. Well, that's what Allen did when he was, when Ralph Spinelli accused him of coming into his office and saying he was going to be a hitman. He said, Ralph Spinelli's a hood. He's a punk. He's a blah blah blah." But when it came to Don, he said, "Oh, well, he's a nice guy. Oh, he's just accusing me of being the most notorious serial killer in North America in the past 100 years. That's okay. He's a nice guy." That tells you everything. That's Arthur Lee Allen's reaction to it. Wouldn't he say, "I'm not the Zodiac. What is he talking about? This guy's out of his mind." So, yeah, that's true. That was Allen's reaction. In fact, he never said anything about Cheney, not on film, not in an interview. Um, yeah, just go Google Don Cheney speaks. Just that phrase in Google, Don Cheney speaks, and that interview, that transcript will come up, and you can read it. There's so many goodies in there. I just can't even count them all. Not as many as are in. His name was Arthur Lee Allen, and go look at the two uploads of art. His name was Arthur Lee Allen on YouTube and read the comments. And every eight out of the 10 comments are saying, "I think Don Cheney's got something to do with this." I think so. Allen mailed most likely the Pleasanton letter. He was very much part of this. However, I think he had input into the early letters. He was going to mail that letter, and then he got a speeding ticket in the city of San Francisco. So he knows better. He can't mail it from there now because he can be placed in the city. I mean, even though it's a big city, even if that letter gets mailed from the city, and they knew that Arthur Lee Allen was there that day, but he was still he kind of overreacted, and that could have caused a rift between him and Cheney because I do think Allen was mailing the letters for most part. My friend did a great analysis, super smart guy, uh, Dr. Michael Suda, PhD, San Francisco State University, laid out all the dates of the canonical crimes and the letter mailings. I think 69 and 70, and he showed that through that whole period, because all the dates of the murders and the letter mailings were lining up on weekends and of course holiday with Blue Rock Springs, and that it would only require over a year to catch, I think, 10 events, including the canonical crimes, plus uh, I think six of the letter mailings through that this whole good period of time would have only required 6 trips to the Bay Area over a year. So it's not like it was some just insane amount of having to go back and forth if it's Cheney and he's, of course, living in Pomona at the time. But it was a really a great analysis that I've been putting out there. So that's all I have for now. I know I went a little long. Sorry about that. But man, everybody was really putting up some great. God, here's another one. I mean, this could do this for like hours. Yes, he got drunk before the lie detector test. That's a fact. Howard talks about that. It was scheduled to be done. Cheney knew about this, and it was going to be in Tacoma, Washington. I don't know how far that would have been from Benton City, where Cheney was living. Not too far, I think. Maybe it was probably an hour or so where Tacoma. So that's where they had it set up. I think the FBI was doing it, and Cheney got hammered the day before that scheduled test, and they had to cancel it. He was so hungover he could not do the test. They eventually get it rescheduled, and what were the results? Inconclusive. Still inconclusive. He could not pass a polygraph in regards to the Zodiac murders. The only other person that failed a polygraph in relation to these crimes was Arthur Lee Allen. Actually, Allen passed a polygraph at Atascadero. He did. Um, so I think he was actually, before Allen died, he was trying to clear his name and do another polygraph test. But he did. He actually passed the one at Atascadero with pretty flying colors, from what I recall. But Cheney did not. Cheney failed. It was inconclusive. He did not pass it. I don't know why that happened, Steve. I'm gonna have to find out. I'm gonna have to ask. I don't know where. I can't remember who. William Bloodworth. If you're watching, drop me a message because I remember you trying to tell me. You tried to tell me. So I don't know if it's something I can do on my end or something. People aren't getting the notices on time. But what I'm going to start doing, Steve, at least put it like 2 or 3 times in the community to try to get to show up. Yes, keep going strong. Go Cougs. Cougs tomorrow against the Canes. 6:30 Central my time. I think we're going to win that game. Whether or not we go any further after that Sweet 16, I don't know. But I hope we make it to the Final Four because it's here in H-Town. Our team, our city. Who knows if who knows if I mean, he claims he has it. Who knows? I'm sure he's watching this. He watches all my shit. I don't know. He claims to have it, but no one's ever heard it. Who knows? I'm not if it's anything that helps this theory, you're not going to ever hear it. Thanks, Bat. Thanks, Val. Appreciate that. Definitely made some great comments. I'm going to definitely look up the number 4. And thanks, Stefan. Again, thanks for letting me use your stuff. He's still doing a lot of good research, and I'll definitely put it up here. So he's been really great about letting me share it. Super nice guy, super smart. He is he's finding a lot of great new stuff. But going back to this, that's huge. That's simple but huge. This guy knew how to spell. He's just jerking people around. It just really, really narrows this case down. But thanks for everybody for coming, listening. As Val said, please hit the like button. Check out Val's channel. It's fantastic. Blowing up. She did such great work on the Idaho murders and Brian Koberg. And there's still a lot going on with that. I'm sure she's going to do even more shows on that as that case develops. It's fascinating case that she was right there in the forefront of reporting on that case. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a good night.